The rising price of dreams. Why Canadian universities are increasing international tuition. Welcome back to Canada Chronicles. Today, we're tackling a topic that's sparking conversations worldwide: the rising cost of tuition for international students in Canada. Imagine working hard, saving every penny, and moving across the globe to achieve your dreams, only to find those dreams becoming more expensive than ever. What's behind this spike in tuition fees? And what does it mean for the future of international students, Canadian universities, and the economy as a whole? In this video, we'll break down the challenges facing Canadian higher education, explore the role of inflation, and analyze the solutions that could reshape the system for the better. Make sure to stick around as we delve into one of the most critical factors, skyrocketing costs and the role of inflation, and uncover how it's changing the landscape of international education in Canada. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Canada Chronicles and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Let's get started. The hidden financial strain in Canadian universities. Canadian universities are renowned for their high academic standards and cultural diversity, attracting tens of thousands of international students each year. For these students, Canada represents more than just a place to study. It offers the potential for work opportunities and pathways to permanent residency. However, beneath this shining image lies a financial struggle that threatens the affordability of education for international students. Over the years, provincial governments have reduced their contributions to post-secondary education. Once generously funded by taxpayer dollars, Canadian universities now receive far less per student. To make up for this gap, institutions have increasingly turned to international students, who pay significantly higher tuition fees than domestic students. This reliance worked for a while, but economic pressures like inflation, reduced funding, and federal policies restricting international student enrollment have pushed universities into financial turmoil. As a result, international students are now at the center of a crisis, with many institutions announcing steep tuition hikes that leave students questioning whether their dreams are still attainable. Program cuts and layoffs, a sign of the times. The strain on Canadian universities has become impossible to ignore. Institutions are slashing budgets, laying off staff, and cutting programs to balance their books. St. Lawrence College in Ontario recently laid off administrative staff due to a drastic 50% drop in international student enrollment. Meanwhile, the University of Windsor faces a $30 million budget shortfall, leading to layoffs and the elimination of programs like its once prominent University Players Theatre division. These financial measures are not isolated cases but rather symptoms of a national trend. Institutions are grappling with a delicate balancing act, reducing costs without compromising their academic offerings. However, these cuts risk undermining the very appeal that draws international students to Canada in the first place. Exacerbating the issue is the federal government's policy to cap international student enrollment. This measure was introduced to ease housing shortages in student-heavy cities, but it also slashes a critical revenue stream for universities. With fewer international students allowed to enroll, institutions are forced to squeeze more revenue from those who do, often through tuition increases. Why international students are targeted. The gap in tuition fees between domestic and international students in Canada has always been significant, but it's growing wider with each passing year. In the 2023 to 2024 academic year, international students paid an average of $38,081 in annual tuition, over 5 times the $6,834 paid by domestic students. Why this disparity? Unlike domestic students, international students do not benefit from government subsidies that reduce tuition costs. Their fees become direct revenue for universities, making them an essential part of institutional budgets. Additionally, international students are often perceived as willing to pay higher fees for the opportunity to study in Canada, with its global reputation for safety, diversity, and high-quality education. Another factor is the added allure of Canada's post-graduation work permits and immigration pathways, which make higher education an investment in a future career. However, this narrative isn't always accurate. For many families, the financial burden of sending a child to study in Canada can be overwhelming. Loans are taken, savings are drained, and rising tuition can suddenly make dreams unaffordable. Some students are left with no choice but to abandon their studies. The emotional and financial toll on students. For international students, the financial pressures don't stop at tuition. Housing, health insurance, transportation, and food costs add up quickly, especially in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where housing markets are among the most expensive in the country. The lack of affordable housing is forcing students to spend more on basic needs, straining their already tight budgets. These financial challenges go hand in hand with academic pressures. International students are often restricted to working a limited number of hours due to visa regulations, which prevents them from earning enough to offset their expenses. This leaves many juggling part-time jobs, rigorous academic schedules, and mounting stress. The mental health impact is profound. Studies reveal that international students experience higher levels of anxiety and stress compared to their domestic peers. The pressure to excel academically, justify their family's financial sacrifices, and secure a future career can take a severe toll on their well-being. For many, the journey to study in Canada feels like climbing an insurmountable mountain. Thanks for staying with us so far. We appreciate your time and hope this information has been eye-opening. Let's now examine the skyrocketing costs and inflation's role in this growing crisis. Skyrocketing costs and the role of inflation. Inflation is a silent driver behind rising tuition fees. Canadian universities, like any other organization, face increased operational costs. Salaries for faculty, campus maintenance, utility bills, and investments in technology have all become more expensive. These rising expenses leave universities with limited options, especially when government funding remains stagnant. The University of Alberta exemplifies this trend. The institution has announced a 10% increase in tuition for international students entering in fall 2026, bringing total tuition hikes since 2020 to over 30%. Other universities, including McGill and the University of Toronto, are likely to follow similar paths. These escalating costs are more than just numbers. They represent a growing accessibility crisis that threatens Canada's global reputation as an affordable education destination. The broader implications. A risk to Canada's reputation. Canada has marketed itself as a welcoming and affordable destination for higher education, but the rising costs of tuition risk tarnishing this image. Students from middle-income countries are particularly affected, with many finding it impossible to afford a Canadian education. This could have far-reaching consequences. Universities rely on international students not just for revenue but also for the diversity they bring to campuses. A decline in enrollment could lead to fewer cultural exchanges and less innovation in classrooms. Moreover, Canada's global competitors, countries like Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, are ready to capitalize on this shift, offering students alternatives that may appear more attractive. The impact isn't limited to universities. International students contribute billions of dollars annually to the Canadian economy, spending on everything from housing to food to public transportation. A decline in enrollment could ripple across local economies, affecting businesses and communities that rely on student spending. Addressing the crisis. What can be done? The challenges facing Canada's higher education system are immense, but there are actionable steps that could help. Increasing government funding for universities is one of the most immediate solutions. By restoring funding levels to where they were a decade ago, provinces could alleviate the financial strain on institutions, reducing their reliance on international tuition. Universities can also diversify their revenue streams. Collaborations with industries, alumni fundraising initiatives, and research grants can bring in much-needed funding while fostering innovation and growth. Transparency in financial planning is equally crucial. Students deserve to know where their tuition dollars are going and how universities are using these funds to improve education and services. Addressing the housing crisis is another priority. Building affordable housing specifically for students would not only relieve pressure on local markets but also create more stable living conditions for international students. Targeted scholarships and bursaries should also be expanded to ensure talented students can access Canadian education, regardless of their financial background. Empowering students to navigate the challenges. For international students, planning and preparation are key to managing these rising costs. Researching tuition trends and financial aid options is essential before committing to a university. Many institutions offer scholarships specifically for international students, and applying early can make a difference. Financial planning is just as important. Understanding the full cost of studying abroad, from tuition to living expenses, helps students and their families prepare for the journey ahead. Part-time work opportunities, internships, and co-op programs can also provide much-needed financial relief and valuable career experience. As we've seen, the rising tuition fees for international students in Canada reflect deeper challenges in the country's higher education system. From funding shortfalls to inflation and policy shifts, these factors are reshaping the opportunities that international students once sought in Canada. But while the situation may seem daunting, there's hope for change if universities, governments, and students work together to find solutions. If you're an international student or considering studying in Canada, staying informed and planning ahead is more important now than ever. Knowledge is power, and understanding these changes can help you make the best decisions for your future. Thank you for tuning into Canada Chronicles. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you'll never miss an update. We'll see you in the next video.